Okay, so we are here at one of the Groq offices, and it's a pretty crazy story because we were doing hackathon, and I just wrote to you, Sunny, out of blue, if would you be interested in doing interview, and you responded immediately. Yes. And we are meeting. We haven't met before.
On Saturday morning.
On Saturday morning. Yes. That was pretty crazy. Yes. Sunny, welcome to this interview. Thank you for agreeing.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome. Sunny, you are head of Groq Cloud.
Yeah.
General manager at Groq, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually have been a serial entrepreneur. So I built and sold several companies, and Groq just acquired my company in March. And so that's how I joined. But, I've known Groq and the company even before it was formed. I actually met Jonathan when he was leaving Google. And I had a chance to seed invest in the company and help introduce him to a bunch of different investors. So I have a long history with Groq, so it's been really interesting to watch. And the last couple of months have been, really, really exciting.
It's going crazy. Yeah, it's really fast. But before we get into that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, how did you start with programming? How did you get involved with AI?
Yeah, so I'm a lot older than you guys, but...
Not that much.
No, I got my first computer back in 1988. And, when I got it back then, obviously no internet. And so it was very basic in terms of understanding. I would say a year after getting it, I was already opening it up and learning how to upgrade different parts of it. A year after that, I was online with BBSs, so very early on. And then a year after that, I was, part of different online BBS communities, and we were hacking software and taking away copyright protections. And so I have a long history in that. And then, ultimately I went to college for computer engineering and it honed my skills. Worked at a startup and went to Cisco, was at Cisco. And then I've built, 3 of my own companies after that. So I've been writing software for a very, very long time.
Maybe a random question, but what's your favorite programming language?
It's an interesting question you ask. And I think I have a unique skill in that I can look at any language and it doesn't bother me, its context or syntax. And so I don't really have a favorite one because I can sit down in Python or Java or C or C++ or, sort of Go or whatever it is. And they don't look different to me.
Yeah. This is like a polyglot programming.
Right? It is. Yeah. And that's how it seems to me. There's certain tools I like better, which are more advanced. There was a time and place where, IntelliJ for Java was very, very powerful as an IDE. And now you have things like Cursor and all the, the plugins for VS Code with Copilot, which are powerful. But I'm very kind of flexible when it comes.
I love this answer. We talked before the interview with one of your colleagues, and he was telling us about the fundamentals. And I think that's also important nowadays, that we need to learn about fundamentals and reduce the abstraction.
Yes.
And if you're approaching language like that, like a tool for a specific problem, I think it's...
But that's very unique approach, because there are many people just arguing about favorite languages.
Or just focusing on one.
Yeah. Or editors.
Or tabs versus space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And how did you get involved with AI? Was it from the early beginning or?
No, it was quite recent. So I sold my previous company, which was a data and analytics and telemetry platform for connected and self-driving vehicles to Ford. And after we sold that company to Ford, one of the things that we saw was companies weren't able to effectively utilize their data. Large companies have so much data, but it's very hard for them to access it. And so when we were starting Definitive Intelligence, we really thought about how could more people access it. And for us, it became clear that AI would be able to help here. But this is prior to GPT-4 and GPT-3.5. And so we started experimenting with what was available then, like GPT-3, and we said, can we use that technology to take human requests and turn them into SQL or, even Python to help extract data? And so that was when we really got deep into it. My co-founders, they have a little bit of a different history. Gavin and Caleb Gavin was one of the early contributors on Postgres. and they were both architects of a at-scale database product called Greenplum. And when they were there, they were very early on in creating Madlib, which is one of the first kind of plug-in libraries for ML. So they have a much longer history in AI than I do. But for us, it really kind of took off, I would say, just before the release of ChatGPT. And then as ChatGPT came out, which is GPT 3.5 and 4, we started to see this like exponential capability. And that's, when we really kind of started to double click in more and more on what would be possible.
There is now another like exponential moment, I would say, and this is speed, right?
Yes.
Because before those tools or those machines, I don't know how to call them, LLMs, were pretty slow, and then Groq happened.
Yes.
Right? And now we have like this immense speed, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I'd say like the following things are happening, which are really important. One, speed and latency are everything on the internet, right? Whether it's in like Meta or Facebook or Google, everyone is always trying to get that down. But I think like Karpathy, and I'm sure you guys follow his stuff. He really talks about like, and we'll just use LLMs generically here because I think he means it more broadly. LLMs as the new operating system. And and he has like a post there, and in fact, he commented on one of our posts because we did the Llama 3 launch, and he said, yeah, like you guys get it, where, as it gets faster, we're still in very low hertz, right? CPUs operate in, gigahertz, right? And we're still in very low hertz. But what's starting to emerge with this technology is that you can basically apply that thinking. Can an LLM be like the new operating system?
Okay, so now we know that the curve is probably exponential, so the rate of growth will only increase. So I'm wondering, where does Groq fit into the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, for us, I think let's do like a flow chart from the top down. So there's like training versus inference. So I think like NVIDIA is dominant in training, right? And obviously they're currently dominant in inference. But I think our architecture, as you can see in the benchmarks and the demos and by all the developers wanting to use us, I think we have an edge on inference. And we have an edge on inference because of the architecture. And I think what's happened is, the architecture of Groq, which is really suited for like large scale, is really starting to shine because most developers are not in a place now where they want to have like a single H100 system or two to run a model. Most developers want a serverless API and they want it to run really fast. And Groq is really well suited for that particular use case. So in the case of Llama 3 70B, we run that on 512 chips, right? But we're able to run it at 300 tokens a second, right? In the case of Llama 3 8B, we run that on 64 chips at 800 tokens a second. So those speeds, I think, are really important to this new generation of applications that are being built. And then there's one more factor that happens when you can start running that quickly. Obviously the Llama release is incredible because the model itself is very powerful, but almost all benchmarks are done on single shot. But if you allow yourself to use reflection, you can do that fast enough that a user may not even notice. And so you can get increased performance out of a model of even smaller size.
That's kind of like my next question, because we were working with Michał on this like idea of having voice interaction with LLMs, right?
In real time.
Like in real time, like with a human, in a way that I can interrupt you when you are saying something. And this way LLM stops and then generates after, given the context already that is provided. And I think that's right now, that's only possible with Groq, right? To have this kind of fluidity. And you talked about latency.
Yep.
It's like low latency and like the fact that fast and
well, 100%. And one of the things that we have in beta, maybe we'll make it available to you guys, is we actually have Whisper 3.
Oh, do?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have Whisper 3 large available.
Please do.
And I believe we run it, and we haven't done a benchmark yet, but like 150x real time.
oh wow.
So it's really powerful. So I think the combination of Whisper plus our LLM, and then we'll also do a text to speech. That whole end-to-end will be really, really fast with Groq.
I wanted to ask you about the future, because there's so many topics we discuss right now. Your time is limited, but I think voice will be an important part of the future, right? How we interact with computers. Voice could be one.
I think voice and vision, right? And so, for
multimodality.
Exactly. And I think multilingual. So I think if we really, I'll just share with you guys, is the things of most important to us is embeddings, because you want to be able to do embeddings really fast, right? So you'll see a model for us on the embedding side. Obviously we have a beta for voice, and then multimodal and vision models. I think the combination of those things really is going to create like sort of the future of applications and services.
So we talked about speed, but there is another factor which is pretty amazing about Groq, which is like developer happiness.
Yeah.
People are super happy, super crazy about Groq on the internet, Twitter, on X, tweeting, and what do you make out of it? I mean,
well, sometimes people think a lot about what it takes to make, I guess, developers happy, but it's always the easiest thing. It's just, price performance.
Yeah.
So if you give them a really good price and really good performance, they're generally really happy. Like whether it's Groq or even before, you want to be able to compile faster. You want your internet connection to be faster, right? You want your browser to run faster. And so I feel like we've just hit the sweet spot for developers. And for us, like, the content coming to match that. And really, kudos to Meta and the launch of Llama 3. That's a very amazing combination for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just wanted to also take a step back maybe, because I'm not sure if everyone who's listening to us, watching us, understood it. But Groq custom architecture means that Groq is also developing custom chips, processors.
Yes.
So could you very briefly, high level, tell me how they are different from, I don't know, Intel or NVIDIA GPUs?
Yeah, I'm not going to be like the best suited, so I'm going to give like the high level.
Yeah, that's what we're looking
for. Yeah, exactly. And for that we should get you guys in with Jonathan or some of the other folks. But like the best way to think about it, and I'll use like some computer science principles, right? When you have a GPU, right? GPUs utilize external memory, high bandwidth memory, and they have like a grid of compute units, and that grid of compute units competes with each other to go out to the memory to go get access to what's needed. And if you think about, let's normalize everything to Llama 3 for a second. You can run Llama 3 on probably somewhere between 2 and 4 H100s. And so all of the H100 fits in the memory for those units. And all the compute units have to compete to go out to the memory to do the computations to make the results occur. For us, we take the same model, but share it across 512 chips, and so there's no contention for the memory. And secondly, all the memories within the chip, it's all SRAM. And so what ends up happening is it becomes highly parallelized, and it becomes sort of runs in a data flow architecture. And so because of that, it's just a completely different architecture that is well suited for larger scales. So if you're a single user at home and you want to run a model, like Groq is not going to be where you want to start, because like I said, you want to run it on more chips. But if you're a data center or you're an enterprise and you have tens or hundreds or thousands of users, that's when we're really well suited. And that's why you see the speed jump that you get.
So Groq is working on, there is Groq Cloud, but there is also like a Groq Rack.
Yes.
You can also buy GPUs. And I was wondering, because now companies don't want to share maybe the data of external providers like OpenAI. And do you think that makes sense to like buy from Groq the machines and build the kind of like a brain inside the company? Is it like a good...
Yeah. So like our primary go-to-market motions are as follows. We want to basically make, we want to allow people to use this in the cloud for developers. Then for folks that have concerns around privacy, we have in the cloud dedicated systems, single tenant systems. So that's our next preference. And then for large enough customers, we will kind of sell to them directly. But, the industry is moving so quickly that we know we can offer sort of the latest and the most updates when we manage that hardware for folks.
Right.
Because, it's just sort of, it's in our control, and it's in our control with, privacy available for those customers.
Maybe changing the gears a little bit. As you said, the industry is moving very fast. Do you have any recommendations you could give to people who are starting right now? Should they go to college? Should they study computer science as we did, programming? Or should they just immerse themselves into AI right away?
Well, I think it, I think there's a lot of different verdicts out there. I think, yes, you should go to college and go, you don't have to go to college, but you should go learn about computer science. I think you should also learn about computer architecture. I think now what I would say is what's really different, and I can say this both as a developer and as like an entrepreneur and CEO before, which is the superpower that exists now. When you were building a company before, if you were a developer, you could only really focus on the computer science part. Now, I really challenge people to utilize these tools, not just to accelerate building that, but you can do the marketing and you can do the customer support and you can even do the design and you can do all these other pieces. And so what I really think I would push people to do is they can become much more holistic because they can tackle many other parts of the stack of building something by utilizing AI. So that's kind of the recommendation I try to give to folks now is, before you would have, folks in product management or different places. And what was their role? Their role was to take customer requirements and sort of translate it into what engineers, what they think engineers can understand. Well, now you can just do that with your favorite model of choice. You could say, here's all this feedback. Please aggregate it for me. And then let's think about what features we should implement.
And it removes bottlenecks, right?
Yes.
We used to have communication bottlenecks. It's kind of like what Groq does to GPU, like a chipset. Like it eliminates some like memory bottlenecks or kind of interesting. Sunny, I wanted to ask you, outside of your work, what you're passionate about right now in the AI space, because there's like music generation.
Yeah.
Like video generation.
Yeah.
Are you following that or you're?
Well, I do a podcast with Jason Galcanis, right? And so we follow a lot of things. I would say the three areas I'm the most excited about is music generation. I really find like the latest that's happened there to be pretty incredible. I'd like it to intersect properly with rights though, because I would like music from artists I like, and maybe perhaps a remix from there. I'm very excited about customized content generation. So the example, and something I do all the time. So a show I really love was Seinfeld, right? And I don't know if you guys watched it or still watch it, plays in reruns, but something I do all the time is I'll go in, favorite AI of choice and say, make me a modern episode of Seinfeld, but with like today's things. And it's fun to read because, I get that. I'd like that to be turned into something. And another one of my favorite shows, Curb Your Enthusiasm, just finished. So maybe I'll keep doing it there as well.
And maybe you'll be able to generate videos.
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah. So, and then the third one I would say is robotics, like the personal robot. And there's a few companies now doing that. And I'm very excited for the opportunity that I think that brings for all of society to have those personalized robots and their capabilities, because they're going to merge with generative AI, and they already are in many ways.
So we're talking about society, like maybe one of the final questions. There's a lot of opportunities in AI, but there's also a lot of risks.
Yeah.
Do you see, do you see, are you more optimistic or how pessimistic? I mean,
well, for me, I'm going to use the lens of open source, right? Think about, there's people talk about the risks with AI, but if we look backwards and we say whether programming languages are open source, that's where it all starts, right? Then we go to operating systems, then we go to like databases. And the more that is open source, the safer society is, because those bugs can get patched, right? People can see malicious code. And so my general feeling is if we keep pushing on the open side, which Meta is doing a great job, I think it's amazing for society. The more closed it is, the more risky, because we don't know what's being put in the code and how it's potentially being used, and could it be used for bad actors, and do only bad people have access to it? And so for me, as long as open is leading, which I think it is starting to now, I feel like the technology is very, very safe for us.
Okay. And if you were to fantasize about next, 6, 12 months, what do you think will happen in the AI space?
I think the example that I tried to a lot of people ask me this question. So the example I try to use is like reasoning, right? And so if you pull out, again, your favorite model of choice and ask it, you give it a picture of 2 cups and say, tell me which one holds more liquid if they're different shape, and give your reasoning why, it does a pretty good job. And I think that's like sort of these examples that people say they're only at a level of a 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old. What I think I would love to see, and I do believe it's coming, is that reasoning capability is at the level of an adult human, where you're looking at 2 pieces of code, or you're looking at 2 financial statements, and you're asking it to do an in-depth comparison and share its reasoning as to maybe why one company is better than another one, or why this algorithm is better than this algorithm. I think those type of things are very exciting.
Sure. Sunny, thank you very much for your time. For getting to this. This is still mind-blowing to me that we managed to meet.
It's the magic of Silicon Valley.
Magic of Silicon Valley. Thank you again for your time.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And
Bye.